Welcome. We're on the red couch with Richard Russell, Executive Director of Sarasota Opera. Richard developed his passion for opera at a young age and had an active career as a professional tenor. He spent 12 years in banking and in 2005 became Director of Marketing at Sarasota Opera. 5 years later, Richard was named the General Director of Princeton-based Opera, New Jersey, and as of 2012 has come back home to Sarasota, to a community he loves and respects. Richard, I am thrilled to have you on the red couch.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So you started your career as an opera singer.
As a singer, yes, absolutely.
So how did that happen?
I learned about opera as a young age. I had a great fifth grade teacher who loved opera, who introduced it to me, and I'd always as a kid sang, and I just was taken with it. I lived just outside of New York, and we visited the Metropolitan Opera, and this whole idea of it, I just got taken away. So I learned about opera, and I loved to be on the stage, and I just started to sing, and eventually studied it in school, and started a career as a singer.
So as a little boy, were you singing on stage, or was that not till after you were in college?
Always. I was always singing. As a kid, I remember I did my first play when I was in fifth grade. So I was always singing in choirs and things like that. So it was something that was kind of genetic, I think, because my mother was a singer.
She was a jazz singer, right?
A jazz singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a jazz singer. So it was something I always enjoyed, always wanted to do.
So your mom was a jazz singer, and were both of your parents supportive of you doing opera?
My dad, it took a little bit for him, and I don't think he ever quite understood opera, but he always was supportive of what I did.
Yeah.
And he would actually travel and go see some of my shows, and he never became an opera lover, but he always was supportive of my career choices.
That's great. Yeah. And you also had a brother that became interested in opera. That is incredible.
It's really interesting. My brother didn't ever like opera when we were, younger. It was, when I loved opera. I was always singing in the house. Actually, there's a legend in the neighborhood where I grew up that I used to mow the lawn singing, and but my brother never liked it. And it was only after I went to college that I discovered he developed an appreciation for it. He liked being on the stage, and he ended up being an opera singer and sang New York City Opera for a number of years. Was in the chorus there, and so here's a household that never had any opera in it, and all of a sudden the two children end up being in that career.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's really remarkable. So you said your dad, even though he was supportive, he never quite got it. And I think there's a lot of beliefs about opera or stereotypes.
Sure.
And so I did a little survey, a little poll.
Okay.
And I asked people, who had never gone to the opera, why didn't they go and what were their beliefs about opera? So I'm wondering if you would be kind enough to address a few of them.
Certainly, of course.
Okay, so the first one is, I can't follow it, it's in a different language.
Well, in many respects, it's true that the operas are mostly sung in French, German, and Italian. As a matter of fact, we're doing an opera right now that's in English, and there are a fair number of operas that are in English. But for certainly us at Sarasota Opera, and most opera companies in the United States these days have surtitles or super titles, translations above the stage into English so people can follow along.
Like in a movie.
Like in a movie, like in a subtitled movie, like a foreign film. Also, you get a program, and the program has a synopsis. It tells the story, so you can read the story before you go, you can understand what they're doing, and then you can follow along as it's happening.
So do you recommend that to kind of have an understanding of what the story is before you get in there?
Yeah, I do. It's not like it's going to be a surprise ending, so I don't think you're ruining the story for yourself if you learn it ahead of time. And I think it helps your appreciation of what's going on. You can understand the situations and concentrate on the music and what's going on stage.
Right, and really appreciate all the incredible costumes.
Costumes and sets and the whole thing.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Okay. It's just screaming. Have you heard that one?
I have heard that, and I would venture to guess that people who say that have never really heard an opera. They may have heard an opera singer going down the street. It was funny, we had an event. Mowing the lawn, or we had an event outside the other day, and somebody drove by in a car, and they had the window up, and they started making noises like an opera singer. My guess is those people have never really heard a song, an aria, an opera. I think if they sat down and listened to it, they would discover that opera singing is, first of all, the music, it has all kinds of variety of dynamics. It's loud, it's soft, it's passionate. And also remember, this is an art form that is not amplified.
So they don't have
They don't have mics. Opera singers are trained to project over an orchestra into an opera house that can be anywhere as small as a couple hundred seats to 4,000 with just their voices. And so it does require, the sound is a little different. It's different training than a voice that's using just a microphone.
Yeah.
But I would also say, the heavy metal that I listen to sometimes, that's a lot of screaming too. So I think people I think if they sat down and listened to it, I think if they went to a performance, I think they would find that experience is not true. It's not just screaming. It's actually quite beautiful music with a variety of dynamic levels. And I think, for me, it's the passionate sound of a human voice.
And isn't it true, like, I'm thinking, I can't remember if it's America's Got Talent or some of those shows, and sometimes they have.
They do. They have, sometimes these shows have, and I love it. For us watching a show, I can't remember which one it was, but Howard Stern was one of the judges. Right. And they had some singers on who were operatically trained singers, and they're singing that kind of repertoire. And the audience reaction was they got up and they were screaming. They were applauding, and and people reacted to that kind of visceral kind of sound. And it just surprises me. I wish those people who can hear that in that context, in a show like that, America's Got Talent or The Voice or something like that, would actually experience the real thing in an opera house. I think they would be very pleasantly surprised.
Right. And when you said they got up on their feet and reacted, you mean in a positive way?
I meant applauding and cheering on, because every time I hear the judges say, and I'm sure that Howard Stern or Heidi Klum don't go to the opera a lot, but they were just they're just saying, oh wow, this is fabulous, what a wonderful sound. And it is a wonderful sound, and it's made just by the human voice.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, the next one is, it's just for older people.
Well, I mean, that's not true. I mean, we have opera incorporates many age ranges, people on it. We have a program at Sarasota Opera, our Sarasota Youth Opera. We have 80 kids in this program, and actually we're doing a full production of an opera, and these 80 kids are in it. They are the people in this production. It's written just to be sung by young people. And it is an opera. We have operas with children in it. And these people these young people who are involved in this program become passionately involved in it.
Yeah.
They many of them live and breathe opera. And this is 80, school-age kids. We have kids from 8 to 18 who are part of this program. We did a production last year of Little Nemo, and we had 107 kids in the production on stage. And afterwards, one of my donors said to me, that's 107 kids for whom opera is a positive experience. We have plenty of young people in the audience. I mean, it's true, in a community like Sarasota, a large part of the audience are older, but I also think that younger people, they have a lot of other stimuli that they're dealing with in their lives. They have, if they're in their 20s or 30s, they're building their careers, they're building their families, and it's hard to schedule in an opera performance.
Right.
It's really later in life, when you have a little bit more time, that you go to any arts. I think, I certainly know friends of mine, when they had their kids were younger, they had time, difficulty going to a movie, going out to dinner.
Right.
It's really difficult in that age period. So a lot of people, when they have more free time and discover opera, that's why you may see a larger number of older people in the opera audience. But it is an art form for everybody. I really think that's true.
So you kind of answered with the next one, which is that it's very expensive. Although I was looking online at your tickets, and I thought they were extremely reasonable compared to a lot of entertainment and activities you could do.
Well, I think that's really true. I mean, opera, first of all, opera is the most expensive art form. You have an orchestra, you have a chorus, you have principal singers, you have sets, you have costumes, sometimes you have ballet, you have dancing. It's expensive to produce.
Right.
And we actually work very hard to keep our ticket prices as low as we possibly can. So our lowest price is $19.
Which you can't even go to a movie once you get the popcorn and the drink for that.
And, you know, even our highest price ticket, which is $125, I'm sorry, I went to the ball game, I went to the Yankees game last year, and I spent much more on that, you know, for that day. Anything you go to, concerts you go to, they're just as expensive, if not more. So I think that, you know, it's all relative. You know, there are lots of opportunities. It's just how you choose to spend your money.
Right, right. So, speaking of a game, so golf game, I don't know, how many hours is a golf game?
Golf game is 4.5, 5 hours.
Okay, so how long is the longest opera that you guys have produced?
Well, we're doing this season operas. It's going to the opera is about a 3-hour experience. And I know people say it's a long evening, and certainly it's longer than going to a movie. It's an hour and a half. Yeah. But going to an opera, it's 3 hours. You have generally 1 or 2 intermissions, so there's plenty of time to go to the bathroom in between. It is not a short thing, but and there are certainly operas that go 5 hours long. We are not doing any at Sarasota Opera this year, but you know, it's usually about 3 hours to enjoy an opera, to go, you know, and I think of it as a great experience because you go to the opera house, you can get a drink before, get an intermission, have a drink, get a little bite to eat, and then go back into the second act.
Kind of like a whole experience.
It is a whole experience. Remember, operas were written in a time when there weren't, you know, the whole different media that we have now. They were written when you go to the opera house. That was your day. Right. You know, people would go, and they didn't have. There wasn't electricity. There wasn't many of them anyway. Many operas were written in that period where they, you know, didn't have TV or movies. That was their experience. Yeah. And that's how they wanted to spend their evening.
Right. And that was the next one, which was that they're too long. It's gonna be too time consuming. So you address that. Yeah. Okay. The stories are hard. I can't identify with them.
Well, that's when I think people say because they're, sometimes they're in a foreign language and there might be some barrier for that. Of course, we've broken that down. We have the translations. We have the synopsis in the story. Right. I think the stories are actually some of the greatest stories in the history of mankind. Yeah. I mean, these are great pieces of literature, things like Shakespeare and some of the great stories, great novels. You know, we did a piece last year of Mice and Men.
Oh, right.
Based on it was a movie. It was a great book. It's something that a lot of kids read in school. Yeah. These are the great stories of our time. It's maybe different to hear them sung. And I understand that, but I actually think these are some wonderful stories, and even some of the more outlandish stories that we have in opera. You know, we're doing an opera this year, Il Trovatore, where there's a mother who accidentally, her mother is being burned at the stake, and to get revenge, she thinks she's going to throw her enemy's child into the fire. And you know, I'm sorry, that's not any worse than some of the news stories you hear these days, and right. You know, or a Law and Order or something like that.
And that opera that you just mentioned, I was reading a little bit about it online, and I think there's like a little bit of a bad boy story in there, or the girl likes the bad boy, or what's the exact story?
Well, it's Il Trovatore, and it's one of the great pieces. It's by Verdi, who was kind of a specialty of ours at Sarasota Opera, and it's the story about a woman who is loved by 2 men. One of them is a nobleman who probably is the guy she should be in love with, and the other one is this kind of outlaw, and he's the bad boy, and she's of course in love with the bad boy.
Sure.
And
that's more fun.
The bad boy's mother is the gypsy who has thrown a baby in the fire, and she's being hunted down. So it's a wonderful story of passionate and love and revenge and all of this. And I think it relates a lot to stories that you would, if you just think about it in terms of modern
day. Yeah, they're
day.
totally relatable.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I've had 2 men after me or anything, but
I would be surprised if not.
All right, well, that's another show. So the other one is that it's too sophisticated for me, and I wouldn't feel comfortable being in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're a little bit of a victim of. I mentioned the ticket prices. Yeah. We try to keep our ticket prices low, so we have to raise a lot of money from donors to be able to do opera. I mean, it's just, opera has never made money. You always have to have contributors. And when you do things with contributors, you do big galas and people dress up in black tie and something like that. We're actually trying to wash that away. We at Sarasota Opera tell people they should come as they're comfortable.
So I could wear jeans.
You can absolutely wear jeans. You can wear shorts if you want. I don't recommend it because sometimes the theater gets cold and you might be a little chilly. But you can wear, we had people in jeans and T-shirts. We have, polo shirts. We have people who do dress up in suits and like to dress up, but you don't have to. It's not sophisticated. Opera was always, in its history, was always a popular art form. And there are people from all social strata that go to opera. And to this day, that's really true. If you were to go to the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and which is, seen as the ritziest of the Ritz, and you go downstairs to the orchestra suites, you will see people who are dressed up, and you go up into the balcony and you see people who are not dressed up and who are, some people, secretaries or people, plenty of people from all different walks of life who go to the opera and who love opera.
So originally it was for everyone. It wasn't just for the rich.
Well, the history of opera is actually, it was started by a bunch of kings and queens, and it was as a court entertainment or as for the intelligentsia. But what happened was opera became the popular entertainment. Every city in Europe, which is where opera grew, opera houses grew up in the middle of the city. That was the place where people went to enjoy themselves. And even if you think about the history of the United States and the opening of the Wild West, any town that built itself in the West had an opera house. You look at all of these towns in the West, they all had, you see there are lots of places in the United States that have theaters, that have places to meet that were called the Grand Ole Opry. All of these places grew up, and because it was a popular entertainment, it was a place for everybody to go and have a good time, and we still foster that. I think opera is a place where everybody can enjoy it.
So what about clapping? Like, how people look around, should I clap now? Is this the right time? Is this appropriate? What do you recommend for?
I think, applause at opera is great, and hopefully you will like it and you will be inspired to applaud and even get up and cheer or yell bravo, which is what we do at the opera. And I think, people shouldn't be afraid of that. People shouldn't be concerned about what they should do at the opera. They should just enjoy it. And we like to tell people, applaud as the spirit moves you. It was, it was the history in opera, and this goes to the present day. Somebody will sing a high note in the middle of an aria, and sometimes people will yell out bravo just because they're so excited by this one note. Most people at the opera, they go there to have a good time. Yeah. And part of that is expressing their appreciation, and that's applauding. And I think, I never am concerned about going and worrying about applauding, because I enjoy it. I want to show my appreciation. I applaud.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Well, I think everybody should.
Clap whenever I want.
You should, absolutely.
So I want to get back to you.
Okay.
And thank you very much for addressing all of those.
Well, look, I want people to come to the opera. I think, one thing frustrates me is when people say to me, I don't like opera. And, I just would never go. And then I say, well, which one did you see? And they say, I've never been to the opera. And I said, you know what? You can't tell me you don't like it if you don't try it.
Right.
I think it's important for us to get people in the door and to give it an experience. It's absolutely valid. If somebody is not going to like it and tried it, I respect that. Yeah. But if you tell me you don't like it and you have never tried it, you've never even listened to a whole aria, I would say, then I can't take it seriously, because people should try it. People should give it a chance. And it's interesting. I have a story about a board member of ours at Sarasota Opera who came to the opera. They came to Sarasota. They moved here. Some friends said, you have to come to the opera. And she looked at her husband and she says, I don't think this is for us. But they went anyway just to be nice. They'd never been to the opera before, and they became so passionate about it. They went every opera that we did. They went to many more than just one performance, because it was something they had never experienced. Once they opened themselves up to give it a try, it became an important part of their lives.
That's a great story. I mean, it's fun to hear people getting passionate about something that they had never tried, even just, a different type of food or whatever it is. You have to try it first.
It's really true. I mean, I think you have to open yourself up to that experience.
Yeah. So you have had a huge range of experience within the world of opera as a singer, and all different types of experiences with renovating the theater, It was a huge renovation.
Well, when I came as marketing director, there was an initiative that had already started to renovate the theater, and my predecessor Susan Danis did a really extraordinary job in shepherding that. And of course, our artistic director Maestro Dorenzi, who's been with us for 32, 33 years, he was part of that, and it was such an amazing experience to see that theater. Also, because I started my career at Sarasota Opera in the Opera House when they were renovating it the first time.
Oh, wow.
So when I was first here in 1989, the balcony wasn't open, the lobby wasn't refurbished, and so I saw that process, and then to start it basically over again. They gutted the whole theater
Wow.
for the renovation and made it really what is, I think, an extraordinarily beautiful theater right now.
It's incredible. I mean, just go there for a tour of the building.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, it's a wonderful venue. It looks beautiful. I think it's comfortable. It's got a great history. I mean, there are amazing stories about the Opera House, about Elvis performed there. And
Really?
Yeah, Elvis did a performance there. Top ticket price was 75 cents. This is 1950s. I can't remember, 54 or something like that. But it was, there were lots of great performers went through there. The whole Opera House is just a center for Sarasota during a large part of its history. So, and it's a beautiful space, and it's a great place to see opera.
Yeah, and the building itself, I remember you're telling me a little bit about the different floors, and they were used for different purposes.
Yeah, when the theater was opened in 1926, the front of the theater, which is the lobby now, was very different than what it is now. When we did the renovation, we did it with an idea of restoring many of the historical details, but we didn't want to bring it back to where it was in 1926 because it had different uses. The ground floor had retail stores on it.
Oh, wow.
The second floor of the lobby had offices. There was a dentist's office, an insurance office, and then the third floor had apartments. And the apartments were originally designed for traveling performers who would perform at the theater to stay while they were there. At some point in the World War II, it became a house of ill repute for a little while up on the top floor. But
no longer, I suppose.
No longer. No, they actually, there's an article in the Sarasota Herald, as it was then called, that talks about how a new manager came in and cleared out all the ladies. So, so now it's a beautiful lobby space. I mean, we have 3 floors of lobby for our audience, and just, I think, beautifully laid out and just decorated. I think it's a great welcoming space, and I love people to see it.
It's spectacular. So if you had a juicy secret to living a happy and successful life, what would it be?
I think it's actually kind of what I alluded to earlier, is to just be open to the experiences. My career trajectory was so bizarre because I started as a singer. I landed in banking for a while. I worked for Citigroup, and then I got back into the world of opera, and I think it was because I was open to trying new things and to experiencing it. You mentioned something earlier. I forever refused to eat fish. You talked about food, and then finally I said, why not? Let's try it. And now I eat fish all the time. I think people, that's, to me, a happy life is enjoying it, not sweating the little stuff, and because opera itself is a art form of great passions, of great highs and great lows. Working in the opera business is like that too. You have moments of great excitement, and I love the experience of watching an audience react to a performance, and that's a great thrill for me. Then, of course, I have to sweat the numbers about raising money and all of that. So I think just being open to it all, being open to enjoying what we have to do, this incredible community we live in. I'm very lucky. I've had a great life and great opportunities, and I love my work, and I love this community. I love living here, and I think it's just being open to that.
Well, thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful winter season. You have a lot of wonderful things coming up.
We do. We have a great winter coming up. We have 4 wonderful operas, Il Trovatore, as I said, The Barber of Seville, which is a real favorite opera, and I love, there's a great Bugs Bunny cartoon about the rabbit of Seville, and but that's another way to open people up into opera, is to experiencing it that way. We're doing a Wagner piece, The Flying Dutchman, which is great music, and then a rare piece by Verdi called Jerusalem, which is not been heard very much in this country, so it's an opportunity for people to see something that they would not have a chance to see anyplace else.
Well, I'm very excited about your new season, and thank you so much for being on the Red Couch.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
On the Red Couch.